Today, we're bringing you a collection of individuals who run their own distributorship inside of medical device sales.
It's all about the story you tell yourself. You are limitless. You are able to go do it, and you will find a way to go do it. And it was the art of just like head first diving in. You're just trying to go figure things out. 6 months later, I learned how to go FDA, a medical device company, and brought product here from overseas. And then I sell surgical instruments across almost all 50 states.
You're doing everything you can. You're putting yourself and your mental and physical well-being on the back burner.
Yep.
Everything else is a priority because with distributorships, that's one of the benefits is it's eat what you kill. But that's also one of the really harsh realities is you eat what you kill.
Exactly.
Right?
They made the jump. And now they're going to share their experience of what it was like, what they look for in hiring reps, and also what manufacturers look for in their partners.
So basically, to summarize what a distributorship is imagine if Reebok, Nike, Adidas all came to you, Jacob, and said, you have the rights to sell our product in Southern California. And that's basically what I did. So I picked up the second product line, the third product line, and I picked up products that had mutual interests to coincide to one another, where I can go to a physician or a hospital and bring a portfolio that really made sense. You don't really want to bring, product in urology and then go back to neurosurgery. That wouldn't really make sense. So I said, okay, my specialty is mainly in everything from the chin up, brain surgery. I got into spine surgery, the craniomaxillofacial space. So in cases, what I started to notice is, or what are other things that surgeons are pulling? Bipolars, aneurysm clips, certain cottonoids, Duragen products and so forth. And I said, how do I start finding other competitive products and building a portfolio and going to surgeons saying, look, I'm a one-stop shop for your cases. And I think that's what I started doing. And I started building a portfolio around that, did it all myself the first year. And then I finally learned how to go hire. And that was my first hire at the age of 25 to bringing someone on to learning this unorthodox, messy model that I built that had no structure at the time. And it was the Hard Knocks MBA. That's all it was. And I think the best lesson from this was just being a doer. And part of it is in your early 20s is you have your amygdala, which is the fear in your brain that you don't really coincide with because you don't have much to lose. And when you start gaining a little bit of money and wealth in your life, a different amygdala starts to pop up is, all right, now you have to protect yourself, but there's nothing to protect. You just want to go forward and do and start taking action. So in my early 20s, I said, let's just start taking product on, see what hits, see what sticks, hire reps, they churn. You're figuring things out as you go. And there is no playbook. It's not like building an ordinary company like I do today. So it was a very lonely process, but I think the best experience is surgeons will see what you're doing, hospitals will see what you're doing, and appreciate the hustle. And I think that's what a lot of people should take consideration, that you took the jump, you left the big corporate job, you left the Concur expense account and said, I'm the expense account. I'm taking you out today. I'm paying for my own gas to be here, my own time. I eat what I kill. And that's a hell of a feeling.
Now, I really want to jump in this because you've mentioned it a couple of times. So you work for a distributor, and a lot of the people on the podcast don't really know what that is. I'd love to kind of go into what the difference is between like a distributor and like one of these big W-2 companies, like, let's just say Stryker, Medtronic, Johnson & Johnson, what everybody knows. That's like where you could be a W-2 and talk about the difference of a distributorship and even in like compensation. But also I want this for the listeners of education. Like, we talked about some need a 4-year degree. Well, in a distributor route, maybe you don't. And so I'd just love to touch on all that for the listeners.
Yeah. So, I'll try and explain that as best as possible.
Yeah.
I might be a little convoluted, but when you work for a distributor, like I work for Unified, I have a distributor principal, and then these companies like don't hire direct reps. So they go towards my distributor and like pretty much say, hey, do you want a line? Or my distributor reaches out to them saying, hey, I want a recon line. So that company will then use our sales force to get to sell their stuff. Mm-hmm. Whereas like, I don't work direct for that company. I'm an independent contractor. I have these lines that I represent, but I don't work direct for them. So the big thing with that is I'm a 1099 and a direct rep is W-2. And what that means is the W-2 reps can only sell that company's products. When you're an independent contractor like myself that works for a distributorship, we can carry multiple different companies' products as long as they're not the same.
Yep.
Like they're not the same products. Like I can't sell a distal radius with plate with one company and the other company also has it, and I can't sell both plates going in with everything.
Yep.
So non-competing products I could sell, and they don't care if I bring on more stuff. So for me, our distributorship pretty much has an entire orthopedic bag. There are some companies like Zimmer and a few others that don't just do recon, but like for the most part, like there are companies that if you're a recon and joint rep, you're not a trauma rep, and you're limited to the opportunities of what you could sell, and you're only allowed to sell that certain specialty, if that makes sense.
No, yeah.
Whereas when you're a distributorship principal, there's nothing really holding you back. You can sell upper extremity, you can sell joints, you can do trauma, you can do biologics, you can do oncology. If I want, I mean, I have non-surgical things that I sell that's in my quote unquote bag. But that's the beauty of being a 1099. The biggest beauty of being a 1099 is the write-offs and the tax benefits. So, I mean,
I think that's a big thing to touch on real quick, because like a 1099, you're your own business.
Exactly. Which sometimes when you're first starting off, it is a little difficult until you start getting your own business, because just figuring out what I could write off, and you have to find a good tax accountant, which, you know, I'm 5 years in, I'm still trying to find a good accountant. But the thing with that is like all your gas, your everything for your business, you have to pay out of your pocket. At the end of the year, you can write it off, but you're not paying like, you know, these high, huge tax brackets. You're able to hold on to your money and you know.
And for the listeners, can you tell us kind of the difference between like a direct and a distributorship?
Sure. I'm trying to think from an easy way of putting it. So I'm 1099. You know, my boss, he essentially, you know, I guess it's really you're 1099.
Yep.
You're not necessarily, I don't get a car or anything like that. I get a paycheck. I can write a lot of things off on my taxes. You know, my boss, we, as a team, I guess you could say, we still have numbers and things that we got to meet. You know, I guess maybe the points are a little bit different in some of the negotiations compared to direct. You know, there's not as much corporate-y, I guess you'd say, but there still is obviously that corporate element because we still have a bottom line that we have to hit.
Yep.
But for the most part, it's not much different.
After helping thousands of people break into medical device sales, we've received a lot of messages of asking for more personalized coaching and mentorship. Our average member breaks in at around 9.5 weeks at over $113,000. And if you're really interested and really motivated to break into medical device sales, you can click the link below or check out our website at newtomedicaldevicesales.com. See all the testimonial videos of people breaking in with Medtronic at over $170,000, at Abbott $175,000 as a full-line rep. So if you're really excited and also motivated and wanting personalized coaching and mentorship, then go and click the link below, schedule a call, and we'll get you where you want to go. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
You know, the everyday today job, you know, description of what you're supposed to be doing is really relatively the same.
Yeah, and I love that. And the thing I always kind of touch on, correct me if I'm wrong, I would always tell people, especially being a personal trainer, you're 1099, you're your own business. It would be like if someone owned a gym, you work out of that gym, that person owns that business, but you're still making money. And when you make money, you make them money.
Correct.
And still right.
So I work, like, without getting into specifics, I work for XYZ company and I sell ABC stuff, if that makes sense. And there's a lot of XYZ companies throughout the United States that sell this ABC stuff. So I get paid from XYZ company, not ABC, if that makes any 100%. Sense. So I'm getting paid from the distributorship. So overall, our distributorship covers an area. In that area, I'm just going to throw a random number, but let's just say we got 15 employees. We all have to try to get to X amount of whatever the goal is. You know, we compete with other distributorships throughout the United States. And, you know, that's kind of just how it's set up. Just like you were saying, it's like you have a gym and you have all the trainers underneath you that are training. Your whole goal is to still bring in X amount of dollars at the end of the month to keep the lights on and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. And another thing just to touch on is like the big difference when we talked about it, right? Like you said, 1099. And if you don't know what that means, 1099 means like you're your own business. You're with another business, but you're your own business. So like he said, he's not getting a car. For example, if you're in a corporate lifestyle, you might be getting a car, you might be getting 401k, you might be getting health insurance, all this stuff. That probably doesn't happen as much.
Correct, 100%. That's a very good point that you brought up. So since owning my gym, I've had my own health insurance.
Yep.
So I really just transitioned. It was almost the same thing, my LLC and everything that I had set up. Think of it this way. I'm just going to throw a random arbitrary number, but let's just say I get $5,000 in a paycheck. There's no taxes or anything coming out of that. I have to basically, either put money away for taxes. I'll pay for my own gas. I'll pay for my own insurance, all that kind of stuff. Now you can write all that stuff up at the end of the year, so your taxable income is going to be lower than what. Yep. So it does have its pros and its cons depending on how you kind of maneuver around it.
Yep.
But at the same time, there's people that don't want to deal with that. People just want to be direct and want to have the car allowance. They want to be able to do all that. I mean, there's many different ways to skin a cat. Just kind of depends on what works for you. And like I said, I was fortunate. When I had my insurance, it's gone up, obviously, over the past 10 years. But at the end of the day, it's still not as much as what some people might be buying insurance now is.
Exactly.
So I'm fortunate in that regard.
And that's awesome. And I also just really like how, if you guys don't know anything about taxes and LLCs, he just gave you some insight. So you look into that. And then also, like what I just tell everyone who asked that question, just like you said, it's what you're comfortable with. Yep. Some people are comfortable with, like, you'll hear a lot of times, eat what you kill, commission, like you're doing it. Or it's like, hey, you can, be in more of a quote unquote safe thing, but also knowing more of the time when it's safe, there's a lot more rules.
So I'll say this, and this isn't for every distributorship, and I'm generalizing, but it's sometimes people can get swayed by saying, hey, I get a company car. Hey, I get a gas card or something, or I get to take docs out and I have a credit card or whatever it is. But then their base pay might be a lot less. Yep. So it just depends. And like I said, there's not a right or wrong way of doing it. Wherever if you're looking for a job and wherever you can get in to get a job, that's kind of the first step if you're needing a job. But, they both have their pros and cons. Both can be beneficial, just the way that it's set up.
Yep.
So it just kind of depends on what you feel comfortable with.
What made you make the jump from being a W-2 to a distributorship, and can you kind of explain some of the differences maybe that you see in that world?
Yeah, so I was a district manager, and I just made the decision that I watched the different ways that different distributors were doing business, and I saw the really good ones, and I saw a whole bunch of others that were not very good at what they did, and I went, okay, wait a minute. And so I started talking to some of these distributors, and really we had great dialogue, and I decided, you know what, this is what I want to do. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to do this. And I, it's funny, I've always been an entrepreneur, except in my medical device piece of my life. Yep. But I wasn't, I didn't have my own organization, my own company. And so, because I always worked for companies. And so I just said to myself, listen, you can do a really good job of this. There's certain just, core competencies that you have that you can utilize in being a distributor, independent, utilize those, and really, obviously a lot of hard work and put systems and processes in place to really be a favored partner with companies and represent their products correctly and with obviously with the right system in place and in the right framework. So that really is why I decided to do it. And I'm sorry, I wish I would have done it 15, 20 years ago, but
I hear that from a lot of my distributors that I talk to, because I've had friends and buddies who, one of the craziest ones is I know somebody who worked at an organization for 2 years, were just an associate, and then they saw the opportunity, went and started a distributorship, and now they make a multi-million-dollar distributorship because they took advantage and they saw that opportunity, entrepreneurial mind, and saw it. So I see that. Can you kind of explain, because this is always hey, what's the difference between a W-2 and a distributorship, right? And I always am like, oh, an LLC, you have your own, right? You're not getting paid taxes, right? It's not a safe thing. Sometimes there's commission, and sometimes there's a quota, sometimes there's not. Can you just kind of real quick bullet points of what's the difference of you running an LLC in your own company as a distributor, and you would hire those 1099 reps, what they would see there compared to, like you said, if they went and worked at
the Pew Synthes and it was a W-2 job and they're paying them that.
Yeah. So you're going to, if you're just starting out, you're going to find both of these positions that are available to you. I would just encourage everyone, just like you go and research going to work for Stryker or Medtronic, do that with the distributors, because there are distributors that are fantastic organizations and a lot more fun to work with.
Yep.
Just like there is on the W-2 side. I mean, we all experience. So there's no real negatives or I don't find there to be real differences unless you're with someone or an organization that's terrible. And that's just the way it is with being a W-2 as well.
Yep.
It's the same thing. And so as a 1099, all you are is you're an independent agent. You have your own business and you get paid. Your commissions come to you. And then I am going to make this disclaimer. I am not an accountant. I am not a CPA. My advice is only anecdotal. Do not take it.
Yep. Everything
Everything you get paid is the dollars, and then you take your expenses out. You get paid first. I really, really, really like that I get paid first.
Yep.
And my expenses come out of that, and my taxes and everything else. I figured out how I'm going to structure where my dollars go. I was a W-2 for 20 something years. I obviously liked it. I obviously made great money doing it. I like this model better. Some people like being a W-2. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I did it for a long, long, long time.
Exactly.
And so so when somebody says, "Oh, I'm looking to be a distributor rep," great, man. Go look for that. Go talk to that job. If they're a professionally well-run organization, that is a great spot for you.
Yep.
But just make sure they are, just like with a W-2 job.
The pros of it are you're paying less in taxes,
Yep.
a lot less, significantly less, honestly. And nobody's telling you what you can and can't sell.
Yep.
So your opportunities are much bigger than if you're just working for one company. There are companies that have the big name, and it's like, oh, that sounds really great to want to work for the bigger companies, but I don't know, then they kind of like can limit to you as like, okay, well, that's all you can sell and that's about it.
Well, and that's perfect, because I want to kind of transition this to like this part, like exactly what you're saying. Everybody sees the big names and that's what they want to. And everybody who calls me, I challenge them on that, because first off, I think it's like the Harvard thing, right? People talk about Harvard just so they can go to Harvard, or so they can talk about going to Harvard. But who cares? The only people who care are the people like wanting to go to Harvard. Otherwise, like for me, I'm like, I could care less where I work. If one's paying $100K more, who cares if it's Joe Schmo's Medical or wherever it's at? If I have the opportunity, again, as long as it aligns with everything, that's what people really forget about. But also what you're saying is like, if I go work for a big company, maybe I don't believe in like my product or all this different stuff, but I'm limited to just this. But like if you're in a 1099 and you're able to pick up different lines, maybe you can have different options. And also I say this all the time for me is like, well, if I only sell a certain product, well, I can only go see a doctor about that certain product. But like you're saying is if you have a bunch of different stuff, well, you can go pick up a line. Now you can go see a doctor about something else, and maybe it leads into something else for you.
One of the pros about it is you're not pigeonholed to one thing.
Yeah, one product or one company normally.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what had happened was, I was around for a big shift in their business. And then ultimately, like, I'm not afraid to say it, the what we switched to and what our focus is now, I didn't have any existing relationships in.
Come on.
Right? We're calling on foot and ankle surgeons, podiatrists. I know urologists.
Yep.
And I know trauma surgeons.
Yep.
Right? Like, or shoulder, right? I don't know podiatrists.
Yep.
And I was back to square one again. Right. And it's like, you have this success at, with
These
sales.
others. Yep.
And then you're going back to the hard cold calling, 15 touches a day.
Build the territory. You're back to zero. With nothing
to go off of.
Yep.
And the market was really unique. I was selling something that I was very confident in because of my experience in biologics at Wright Medical.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't that I didn't know the product. It's not that I didn't know how to sell or how to cold call or do anything like that. It was such a relationship focused sell, I guess, that I wasn't really having any success. And that was a really hard thing for me to swallow. Right. I was lucky enough to where my owners of my distributorship were paying me like a $5,000 base salary. which is enough to survive,
Yeah.
right?
Well, per month. Yeah.
Per month. Per month. Thank you. Thank you. Shout out. Yeah, no.
You're like $5,000 a year. That's what all these people do. They're like, no way, I can't live off that. So no, $5,000
a month.
Yeah.
But you're now making $60,000 when you're used to making six figures.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, that's a harsh reality.
Exactly.
You feel like you're
just losing.
Terrible.
Yeah, you feel like you went back 10 steps.
10 steps.
And you're not good enough. And why did you even do, like, you start to question everything.
Dude, the mental toll that it took on me, the physical toll, right? It's like you're doing everything you can. You're putting yourself and your mental and physical well-being on the back burner. Like everything else is a priority because with distributorships, that's one of the benefits is it's eat what you kill.
Exactly.
But that's also one of the really harsh realities is it's you eat what you kill.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
So with that, I honestly, it was just a huge blessing is, the two owners, they saw the value that I brought and they saw how hard I was working, even though I didn't really have anything to show for it. And what they did, and again, I'm so pro distributorship right now.
Yeah, come on. Yep.
And so I don't mean to keep harping on it.
No, I want you to because we don't talk enough about it. So we're gonna dive a lot more into it. So yes, please.
So they actually gave me an opportunity to shift. They're like, hey, you know what you're doing, right? And you know the product, you know how it works. You can speak to all of that. So what we want you to do is actually grow our national presence. I went from a sales rep to, national sales director, I think was the title. And it was just purely networking, right? LinkedIn, local reps, what to search, who to call.
Relationships,
all relationships and networking, right? I would have, 10 calls a day with these people. And I was selling really the therapy, selling the fact that they have these existing relationships and I'll teach you everything you need to know. Right. So it was very different, right? Yes. I'm not selling to a surgeon. I'm selling to distributors, sales reps,
things that are only going to actually help them even be more competitive and actually help them on the back end. You're selling a great product to help them with the value they're going to bring to a surgeon. Right.
That grew. And then, beginning of the year was promoted to VP of sales. We now have 2 direct reports, but, we took it from, what were we doing? I don't know, probably about 5 million a quarter in sales to now we're going to hit 17 million a year later, a quarter.
Woo! You talked about picking up lines, right? Getting product. How do you actually do that? We have a lot of people who want to get into the distributorship world, but they don't even know, how do I even get a product? So can you kind of walk me through that process?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a few ways to market yourself, right? And I think the best form of marketing out there is warm referrals, right? So you got to build a good reputation. And when I first started, I had a very bad reputation because I was a kid that was a good salesman, but I didn't know the product very well. So as I became very good at learning products and became a very good salesman, surgeons would start to understand what I'm doing and saying, hey, look, you should go look at this product line and this product line. And I'd reach out to those companies on behalf of a warm referral. Companies, there are big companies out there who don't do a distributorship model. They don't work with 1099 reps directly, but then there are some who do. So you're trying to find more or less lower middle market companies that work with a 1099 model. And you call them, you reach out to them, you build a resume that shows that you are viable enough to sell a certain amount of product in a given geographic region that can get them to a level of scale that makes them feel warranted that you are the guy that can go do this, the guy or gal. And that's what I did. I picked up 2-3 products my first year by being charming and telling these companies that I can go hit these metrics. And the key aspect here is you don't want to overpromise what you can go do. Be super authentic in what you can deliver and then over deliver based off that. And I think these companies saw me as someone who's super young and hungry, and I was able to go incur a few products, and from then on I built a portfolio of about 7 or 8 product lines over the next few years therefore after.
And then you hired your employees.
Yeah.
And between you and one other person, you did over 7 figures.
That's correct.
And then you continued to scale that. And now you have over 8 reps underneath you and at your company. And then you also started learning more about the distributorship game. Can you just kind of go into that piece?
Yeah. The distributorship model is a beautiful business in the sense that a lot of product is consigned to you, so you don't have to really pay for anything out of pocket. And these companies will give you the inventory to go out there and have the privilege to go hunt and sell to surgeons. The caveat to that is that you don't own anything. So you're a middleman. You're basically a mortgage broker. You're not Wells Fargo or Bank of America. The best side about it is it can create a lot of cash flow. It's a beautiful business from that aspect. But where is the enterprise value in what you're building? And I learned that lingo in my mid-20s, and someone called me out and said, are you building anything that's worth selling one day? And I looked at myself, I said, I don't know. Why would I ever sell a company? I know nothing about that. So I started doing some research and saying, look, well, how do I vertically integrate this? And that's when I went at the age of 27, kind of the audacious young Sam I was, and said, I'm going to go to Germany and I'm going to figure out how to manufacture surgical implants and instruments and learn that game. And I literally started looking this up on Google on a Friday evening. And I kid you not, maybe 8 days later, I jumped on a flight to Tübingen, Germany, and met with several manufacturers on a whim, I should say. And it was the art of just like head first diving in, no amygdala. You're just trying to go figure things out. And I think that comes down to like the story that you tell yourself every single day of people who want to go into becoming a distributor and starting entrepreneurship. It's all about the story you tell yourself that, you are limitless. You are able to go do it and you'll find a way to go do it. And I went to Germany and learned the process of how to go manufacture these products. 6 months later, I learned how to go FDA, a medical device company, and brought product here from overseas. And then I sell surgical instruments across almost all 50 states. And I broke into a large Kaiser account where I was selling all these Kerrison Ron drawers. And I sold probably hundreds of Kerrisons to one account. And I was like, wow, the scale here. Imagine if I got that into 10 more accounts and then 20 more accounts. And you start realizing that this is AI resistant. Everybody needs these products, these instruments. And all you try to do is diversify yourself a little bit. But it's a massively scalable model in an industry that I know will never go away. And those are industries that I think I love and which I actually fell into love with medical device at the time because I knew I was picking an industry in a moat that had a unique aspect that could scale and would not be replaced by any sort of AI.
What I would suggest is distributorships are great. Again, I've just been very, very, very blessed with my whole path that I've had in this industry. The owners of my distributorship, typically they don't pay base salaries. The fact that I got $5,000 a month was a blessing. They did reimburse my gas. Most don't. They reimbursed lunches and dinners that I did. Most don't. Right. So I took the jump to a distributorship, but it was also a little bit of a safe jump too. Right. Because I knew with the base, I knew I had enough to pay rent, you had take care of myself.
Yeah. Your base living.
Right. And they took care of the rest. It was kind of like a W-2 in a distributorship. So I think there's two things if you can find a distributor that runs their business like that, I would almost say just start there. Don't even go the W-2 route.
No, exactly.
They're paying you enough for you to live comfortably. And they're taking care of, that's what costs the most. The gas, cold calling, driving around, the amount of lunches and dinners that you do. When you only have $5,000 coming in, you can't really afford to do that. And all these med device companies, pharmaceutical companies have kind of screwed the distributor in the sense that, hey, I'm going to go schedule a lunch to meet with this provider. Okay, great. We have 20 people that you need to feed. And now that's $350. It's like, so you can't even get a meeting unless you feed the whole office.
Exactly.
Right. So it's like, if you can find a distributor that's willing to do what my distributors did for me, screw W-2 and just go right in, right? Get ready to work.
Yes.
But go right in. Sometimes they'll even take interns. We've got an intern right now. I think he's a junior or senior at ASU. He's in the office on his off time. He's asking to take me out to lunch so that he can learn from me. He's doing ride-alongs with the OR reps. He's starting to cover cases on his own. Like,
crazy how successful that kid's going to be.
Right. And he's setting himself up fantastic.
Yes.
If you can't find a distributorship that doesn't reimburse like that,
yep.
It's hard to, we've talked about this, is don't just take the first position that becomes available, right?
Exactly.
You need to think a couple steps ahead.
But it's a massively scalable model in an industry that I know will never go away. And those are industries that I think I love, and which I actually fell into love with medical device at the time, because I knew I was picking an industry in a moat that had a unique aspect that could scale and would not be replaced by any sort of AI.
And why won't medical device sales disappear?
You know, I know the Mayo Clinic in Rochester was trying to remove reps from the OR, and that was a disaster. You know, trying to get iPads and remote them into the OR. But these reps are so eminently important to a surgery. You go into a spine case, an orthopedic case, a multi-level surgery. There are so many components to a tray that a scrub tech who's even very well trained may not know. And you're putting the patient at massive risk without a sales rep. So surgeries can't be done without a sales rep in certain specific surgeries, which is why they're always going to be very valuable.
What did you learn throughout that process over the next several years of being a rep and then hiring reps? What made you a good rep? And what did you look for in the reps that you started to hire underneath you?
I think you have to understand what your zone of genius is very quickly, and what you're good at and what you're bad at. And I knew what I was really good at, and I was told what I was really bad at. And as soon as I was told what I was really bad at, that's how I learned how to go hire those individuals. Hiring is how you get from basically $1 million of revenue to about $5 million of revenue. You can basically have a $5 million business and don't have a lot of systems in place and figure out a way to go sell your way to $5 million. And in order to scale past that, you need an infrastructure in place. So I think it came down to me understanding how to hire effectively, and then how to actually put systems and structure on the back end with experts who are 10 times better than I am, and giving them a piece of the company to show that they have, a significant value into what I'm building. And at that point, things got a lot easier, right? More importantly, how you hire too in this medical device space. Unfortunately, charisma matters more than how you are in a room, in an operating room. People do business with who they like. And I think that's the number one thing as a medical device sales rep you should know. If you are the best clinical rep out there, fantastic. I've met a lot of you guys before. But if you're someone that a physician doesn't want to grab coffee with, relationship will die over time. Because the person who knows how to go have coffee and dinner with a rep, with a surgeon, will find a very clinical person to replace you. And I learned that from hiring multiple people and seeing the amount of churn I had of what is the right medium of how to hire in the sales side versus the clinical side versus the back-end operations side. And let me tell you, there's no perfect playbook. You're going to fuck up, and that's okay. And it's important to know that you need to go through multiple different, hiring mechanisms to see what works and what doesn't work.
No, and just for everyone to know, I am a huge promoter of going 1099. If I had to do this all over again, I would do it all over, the same thing, no different. I don't know if I would actually ever work W-2 now. Yep. And a lot of 1099 reps will say that, until you get used to it, it's just because you're not used to it in the beginning, or used to these nice fancy packages to sign on bonus. I don't know about sign on bonuses, but healthcare and $200 a month for your health insurance that you have to pay as an independent contractor. You trust the process. That $200 you're not, it's a write-off. You know what I mean? It's not going to be a bothersome in a year or two. But just I just want to make sure I say that. I will never be W-2. I like 1099. So anybody that doesn't have a 4-year degree and you need to go the 1099 route, it's not like you have to do anything less. It's less important. It's honest. I personally feel it's better than W-2.
Oh,